However deep in debt America is now, there's no doubt that it will soon get much bigger because of me. Well, not just me, but I'm a baby boomer. My big generation's about to retire and collect Social Security and Medicare. And there's no pool of money to pay for our retirement. Yes, the government took money out of our paychecks for 40 years for what they said was Social Security and Medicare. But they didn't save it or invest it. They spent it right then, right that year. There's no trust fund. Now the government says my retirement must be funded by you young people. But how can you possibly afford that? The politicians have promised my age group trillions of dollars, much more than exists. Evan Feinberg of a group called Generation Opportunity is justifiably upset by this. Your group calls it a war on youth? But geezers like me paid into the system. We deserve your money.
Well, there's no doubt there's a war on youth being perpetrated by politicians right now, where they're spending my future away and spending my current opportunity away on things that aren't making my life any better.
Makes my life better. Can I have your wallet just to take a look at it there? Because what's really happening is you, who I presume are not as affluent as I, are giving me money.
That's a pretty unfortunate place to be for my generation. We've got 16% unemployment. A third of us are being forced to move back in with our parents. And politicians are unfortunately bribing your generation and stealing my future in an effort to put their next election before the next generation.
But some of my generation is poor, and they worked all their life, and they were promised Medicare.
Sure, and that's why I think we need to keep our promises and start restructuring and reforming our entitlement programs to keep promises we've made.
How?
But we're not keeping the promises to the next generation. I think there's a lot of really good policy proposals on the table to
like what?
Restructure. I think Paul
Raise
Ryan,
the retirement age?
Absolutely. I think it's a common sense reform to slowly increase the retirement age while starting to means test benefits to make sure Social Security and Medicare are really helping those truly in need. But if we're going to help those that are truly in need, we need to start putting the next generation first.
There are reforms, and when President Obama ran for president, he said he was going to tackle entitlements during his first term.
We're going to have to take on entitlements, and I think we've got to do it quickly. I'd like to do it in my first term as president.
Yeah, well, that didn't happen. Then 3 years later, the president said he was willing to at least reduce the growth of Social Security.
It turns out that making some modest modifications in those entitlements can save you trillions of dollars.
But on this budget, he backed down from that, too. This is the cost of living adjustment.
Absolutely. He's backed away from even the most modest of reforms, slowing the growth in Social Security benefits by 1/3 of 1%. And now he's backed away from that. We've got really big problems facing our economy, facing our future generation, and the president and politicians as a whole are really refusing to make even the most modest reforms.
So I don't see how it's going to work out. People want more money to fight Putin, pay for the military, who want to help poor people. I think you're toast, and you're committed to help my generation. And entitlement reform does seem to be political suicide.
Years ago, when a powerful majority leader proposed a modest reform, elderly people surrounded his car and screamed at him. He had to drive to a gas station to escape, and he canceled the reform. More recently, when Representative Paul Ryan proposed to rein in spending, a left-wing group ran this morbid ad.
Boy, if you want to reform retirements, you're pushing an elderly lady off a cliff.
Well, I'll tell you who's really getting thrown off a cliff and really getting thrown under the bus, and that's my generation, who's being saddled with all of these bills. A previous guest talked about the $205 trillion that we're going to have to pay back in the future.
Your think tank came out with this iceberg chart which tries to sort of explain that. You see 17 trillion. By the time my age group is all retired, 205 trillion. There's not enough money in the world.
No, that's the fiscal gap. If you look at what the government has promised in benefits in Medicare and Social Security, Obamacare now, this new entitlement, and what we expect to bring in taxes over the 75-year period, that is what you're looking at.
There's not enough money in the world, as you put it. My generation is getting thrown under the bus in an effort to make sure we don't even make the most modest reforms to our entitlement programs.
And you hinted at Ryan's idea. His point is that these programs, which say, we'll just take care of you, encourage people to be dependent.
Absolutely. I think Congressman Ryan's really led the way to start opening a discussion about how we restructure just how we pay for these programs to make sure they help those most in need and make sure they're really targeting benefits in a really efficient way. And I think it's really a great start to the conversation.
Thank you, Evan. I'll give you your money back. I'm sorry I took it.
I appreciate that very much.
When I retire, it's going to come back to me.